everyone, welcome back to my channel. Carol here at Oak House Journals. I thought I would do just a very quick tutorial today on a nice easy project and show you how I put together these little ephemera or label folders. I posted this on Instagram this week, and one or two of you have asked me how I did it, so I just thought I would just do a quick little video run through showing you how to do it. And as I say, a lovely, quick and easy project, something you can rattle off in easily an hour or so, depending on how quick you craft. And I craft slowly, so you could easily do this in just over an hour, I suspect. This is just basic little side tuck there, and another little side tuck at the bottom. You open it up, there's a big pocket along the bottom here, and as you can see, I've just popped in some labels. I've done a little bit of collaging in the bottom corners there, and then same again on the reverse side. So you've got a long pocket there. Maybe if I take these labels out, you can see you've got a long pocket there, or a long tuck, and then another little one at the bottom, and then you've got one behind. And then, because obviously I wanted to give these away, I wasn't just going to give them like this. I wanted some means to keep all the lovely tickets and labels all in place, and so I was going to create a vellum envelope, and then I thought, well, actually it would be nice just to do a vellum wrap, and it's quicker and easier, and it just slides in there, holds all the tickets and labels all in place, and even the eyelets are just for decoration. So okay, let's get started, and I'll show you how to make it. So first off, what you need is a piece of cardstock measuring 10 inches by 7 inches, or 25.5 centimetres by 17.5 centimetres. Now you can actually use whatever size of card you want, because like most things that we make, you know, you can increase the size or reduce the size as it fits your project. And the good thing about these is that you can actually use them as gifts, or you can use them to go inside your journals. And once you've done the basic folding, they would go inside a journal really easily. And if I explain to you that that's what I originally made my folders for, when I was doing my mini trifold journals, and then decided I would use them for something else at a later stage. And the reason for that was because I'd done them in this craft card, which is heavy stuff. It's just shy of 300 GSM, so it is heavy cardstock, but you don't need to do it in this weight of cardstock. You can do it in anything from 120 upwards. I think probably an ideal weight would be around about 200 GSMs, 200 grams. But as I say, this is a bit thicker. So as I say, 10 by 7, and all I did was I got my card and I literally folded it in half. The only thing you need to do with this folder is make sure that you make your folds accurate and you burnish well. So your first task is to fold your piece of cardstock in half. The next thing that you want to do is, and I've got one prepared and off to one side here, same piece of cardstock, you want to score it 4 centimetres in from the left hand side. So we're working with it in landscape orientation rather than portrait. So your long side is along the bottom, your short side is up this way. So fold it in half like so, and then your next fold will be down this left hand side 4 centimetres in, and over on the other side your right hand side again 4 centimeters in. Fold your crease in and burnish it really well, and I would suggest the thicker your cardstock, the more important it is to burnish well and to burnish on both sides. So do both sides where you've done those score lines and burnish well. Okay, open your card out, and where you've got that fold like so, if you've got the mountain side, flip it over and score along the bottom, the long edge, again at 4 centimeters. Fold it up and burnish well, and again burnish both sides. Okay, now what you want to do is where you have this center fold, fold it in half so that this piece here that you've just done is on the outside, and again do your burnishing. Okay, so you've got your mountain fold and this like so. Okay, flip it over and go back to these ones, these side folds, and this time when you've folded it over you will get this little pocket occurring here. So let me show you on the other side. You're folding that over, hold it in place and burnish well, and particularly burnish well in that corner area at the bottom on both sides. Okay, so you should have something looking like this, and then when you flip it over you've got that. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to fold down this center fold again, holding these two pieces in place and making sure that your corners all meet up and your edges all meet up, and burnish again. And it's amazing how when you do these creases and these folds, how it will want to push and force your piece of card slightly out of skew. Okay, now you'll notice that I've got a rounded off corner here. You won't have that, because now what you want to do is open everything up, and if you want rounded corners, use a corner chomper. I've got one of these We Are Memory Keepers crocodile corner chomper, and what I used is the 1/2 inch corner chomp. So I just popped my corner in there, and the corner that you're doing is the one with the score lines there. So I just popped mine in and chomped it, and I did that on both sides like so. Now if you want, you can also round this corner here. I didn't, I prefer mine left square, but there's nothing to stop you rounding that corner if you wish to. Okay, so going back to how our fold was, fold up the inside, flip it over, fold like so, and fold like so, and that is our basic folder. Really easy. Now there is some stitching involved. You don't have to stitch, but I would recommend it to really reinforce and hold this flap and this pocket in place. But before you actually go ahead and sew, what we're going to do now is actually cover all these pieces, and if I get the original one out again, you can see what I've done. Let me get it out of its sleeve, pop that to one side, and if I take all my labels out here, you can see what I've done. So that, if I flip that over, that's the basic one that we've just got to, and this is the one where I've just covered it. And similarly on the inside, I've used a long piece inside and again on the other side. So what you want to be doing now is you want to choose whatever covering or paper or wallpaper you want to use inside your folder. Now I've got some pieces that I've just cut out here, and these are just pieces of wallpaper from some wallpaper that I had in my stash. And I find it better to actually do it at this stage rather than try to do it after you've stitched your folder into place. It makes life so much easier. Okay, so you have your basic folder, and what I tend to start with is I'm just creating my shape. I tend to start with this piece here, just personal preference. And all I've done here is I've cut a strip. I think this one was 3 centimeters. Where on this one, I actually cut this one 3.5 centimeters. And to be honest, I much prefer the look here to the 3 centimeter strip, but that's what I've cut, so that's what I'm going to use. And all I do is I take my piece and I just slide it inside my pocket and center it up, and as you can see it's a lot longer, and I'll show you why I do that. So I've just centered it so that I have an equal spacing of my craft cardstock on either side. Now really, if you prefer, you can, as I say, go wider with your strip, or you could go right to the edges on this piece, in which case you'd cut a strip that is 4 centimeters, because that's what we made our crease at, and that's the width of this piece. But as I say, I've done 3 centimeters, and I'm just centering my piece inside there like so. Now how I tend to glue is I've got it right down the end of my piece of paper, right down into this crease down at the bottom here, and I can feel it in there. I've centered it up, and I just keep my fingers tightly on that piece and I bend it back. Now what I do, and I'm going to try and be good here and not put the pin in my mouth, which is my usual trick. I know roughly at the top where my paper, I'm just going to center that properly, I know where my piece of paper is going to meet my edge here. So I put a little line of glue along there, along the top, and then holding the bottom piece in place still, I just bend it back and I glue along the edges of my piece of paper, and I stop short at the top, just roughly guessing how much my paper overlaps my base, and then I just put a little bit like that, smidgen extra there. All the time I'm holding the bottom here so it's going nowhere, so that I know that when I lie it down on there, and I'm just looking for my bone folder, I know that it will stay in place. Now what I tend to do now is any excess where I've not quite calculated where my paper is overlapping, I just wipe it away quickly, open up my crease again. This bit is nicely in place, it's stuck, but it's not permanently stuck, and I just bend back the bit that hasn't been glued, plus a little bit extra, as you can see here, where it hasn't quite set. And as you're doing this, I mean, you're working fairly quickly. That piece of glue, that piece of paper won't be set solid or set permanently. So you've got plenty of time to just lift it back, and that way you know that you have glued the entire piece of this piece of paper down. Okay, so that's our first bit in place. So same thing on the other side. I just quickly pop my piece of paper into the bottom, centre it up like so, just checking I've got it the right way up, and I hadn't. So I'm popping it in my crease right to the bottom. I know roughly there. Bend it back, still holding on to the bottom. I'm not bending it back and creasing it. I'm bending it just enough just to hold it in place. Little bit of glue across the top, and then I do my edges here. There we go, and a smidgen down the middle for extra measure. Hold the top, and it's not glued there, so I know that I've got fingers that aren't going to get covered in glue as I'm doing it. Open it up, turn it round, just lift up the bit that hasn't been glued and a smidgen extra, and this time do my edges. Whoops, gone too far on the glue, a bit too eager there. And that's my piece of paper in place. And all I do now is from the wrong side, so that I have the edge of my cardstock as my guide, I then chop my piece of paper so that I'm getting rid of my excess. So using my card as a guide, chopping away my excess paper. Okay, Bob's your uncle, Fanny's your aunt, all done. So very, very easy. I haven't done this bit, and I'll explain why. With these bits to go in here, I mean, I'm not going to give you any measurements for these, the reason being that you might prefer to have less of the craft card showing, or you might want to actually cover that up completely. What I would say to you is take your piece, make it longer, slightly longer, so you've always got that piece to hang on to, so you're not getting glued on your fingers. Take your piece into the crease, but slightly up from the bottom, and the reason for that is that you will probably find that the crease to this flap doesn't quite marry up with the bottom there. I'm not sure if I can show you on camera. Let's try and show you there. It doesn't quite marry up. So what I tended to do was I just moved the piece of paper that I was lining with just up slightly, so it lined up with the bottom edge of this flap down here. Okay, and what I'm doing now, and I've done it again, you know, I've got my piece of paper upside down, and I've even got the wrong piece of paper, because what I did was I cut these out of, as you can see, I've cut them out of one piece of paper and cut it down there, so that I would have a nice match. So pushing my piece of paper into the crease, lining it up along the bottom there, and I'm just doing it, I've cut mine just so that I've got probably about 3mm edging there, and as I say, it goes over the top. I'm not worried about that. So same trick as I did before, opening that out, holding this in place with my hand, bending it back slightly, and then using my glue, just putting a bead along the top up there, and then along my edges. And then rattling it round inside here. And then on here for good measure, like so. Okay. And actually my hand has just moved as I was doing that, so I wasn't concentrating on keeping the pressure down below. So I'm just going to realign that quickly before my glue starts deciding it wants to set, and then just using my bone folder, just wiping away any excess glue, flip it round and do the same process on the other side. And because you know this edge is going all the way down almost to the bottom there, but not quite, you're not putting a bead of glue along the bottom there, you're putting it on your paper instead. And then just checking that it's going to go around the corner like so. Extra on here. And there you go. Smooth it down. Check that there's no glue seepage. And there we have it. Okay. So again, flipping it over to trim from the wrong side using my card as a guide. There we go. So I've done that piece there, I've done that piece there. So the next thing you would do obviously would be put that piece in there and glue and trim that one. And then all I do for this one was, I'm going to take that away so we're not confused. I cut a piece that was big enough for this complete centre portion, even down behind the tuck there. And then what I did was I just trimmed it down each side slightly so that when you pop it in place and fold those back, you have a couple of centimetres, probably 3 on each side there, showing the craft cardstock along the edge. So same procedure as we did before. I would leave it like this, hold that and glue that. Now one tip here is you've obviously got the fold line here, so I would make sure when I'm gluing this in place that I put a lot of glue on either side and along that fold line, and then work it well with my bone folder or my fingers to make sure it adheres well along that crease. Then as before, I'd flip it over like this, that would be glued, and I would glue this piece in place and again work that fold line. One thing I would say to you is the next step is to go away and sew this. And what I would say to you is let this dry first. Now I'm using the art glitter glue and it dries pretty quickly, but because we've put a fair amount on either side and along that internal crease, I would give it a good 15-20 minutes or so to dry before you start sewing, for the simple reason that before you start sewing, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to fold everything in place before you start stitching. And if this is still slightly damp, it's going to crease. And if you look at mine, I'm not sure if the camera's going to pick that up because my camera is pretty useless and there's lots of shadow creeping in. You will get some additional creasing along that line if your glue is not completely dry. So one tip from me is just walk away 10-15 minutes, go find something to do, go make a cup of coffee or something, and let this piece completely dry. Okay, so you've got your piece in place like so. These pieces are folded back like so. And what you need to do now is you need to stitch this flap in place. Now what you can do is you can stitch it all the way down here and along the bottom if you want to. And on the first one that I did, as you can see, that is exactly what I've done. I've stitched all the way down here and along the bottom on this side, on the side where the tuck is. If you do that, you will get a line of stitching on this side. Now, it depends whether you want that or not. What I prefer to do now is to actually just stitch along here and here, which means that you don't get any stitching up here on the other side. You just get it on the inside there. And I don't mind that because I collage and put things over the top of that, as you will see in a minute. So this is one that I've done earlier in true Blue Peter style. So as you can see, I've rounded my corners, I've got everything glued in place, and I've stitched these two corners. Now what you want to do, as I've done on this one, which is the original, is I've just done a little bit of layering and collaging inside here. Now if you wanted to, of course, there's nothing to stop you cutting another piece of your paper or wallpaper and putting a strip across the bottom there. That's completely up to you. I chose not to do it because I was using some existing folders, as I said, and they already had this label in place here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a little bit of quick collaging on my pockets, and easy enough to do. I've got some bits and bobs here off to one side. So what I'm going to do is just roughly tear some little pieces that I want to collage with, and I've got some of these tickets that I got from AliExpress a while ago, and I like the green and I like the design on them, so I've just ripped off a tiny piece for on there. I've ripped out a couple of pieces of wallpaper earlier on today, and I'm just going to collage these on here, just very quick. You can ink them up if that's what you want to do. I haven't done any inking on this particular project. Just depends on how the mood takes me as to whether I do any inking. And this is when it doesn't matter that your stitching has been done on the machine, because what you can do is you can hide your stitching if you want to when you're doing your collaging, and I'm not particularly bothered about my stitching showing or not. I'm just going to do what takes my fancy, really. And I think I want a sticker on there, so I'm just going to grab one of those quickly. And true to form, they were on the other side of the room, so I've just got some stickers, and that's all I'm going to do. Really quick and really easy. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So I'm just ripping a piece of my ticket. And I'm not even going to try and match them up completely because they're on different sides of my project, so it doesn't matter which way round your pieces go. So I'm just going to do that, and that's going to go on there. And my two cats, my two boys, who have been outside all evening, have now just decided to come in, so that's the clatter that you might have just heard then, which is as they come through the cat flap between the outside porch area and my craft room. So they will just sit down by the side of me here, hopefully, and wait until I open the door to the kitchen so that they can get their tea, or they might ask. So I've got my fingers crossed here that they're not going to get too noisy. Okay, so I need to do something here. So same thing, I've got my pieces of ticket. Oh, Cooper's looking, he's looking longingly at me. I think he's going to start being vocal in a minute. Fingers crossed. So I'm just going to pop those pieces there. And what else have we got? I've got some of this. Sorry, I'm fighting here to one side with this Japanese paper. It's very fine. I mean, this is folded over. I think it's 4 or 5 times. So it's flying away everywhere and catching my elbow. So get it out the way. I think I might just pop that on there like so. See how that goes. Yeah, quite liking that. Might use some of my Japanese sanwa paper. See how thin it is? It's lovely, this stuff. And it's almost gossamer, and it's got these tiny, tiny gold and silver flecks or flakes in it. And let's see how the mood takes me with a piece of this instead of the mulberry paper. Yeah, I'm liking that. Just something for a bit of interest, I think. See, this is where I could play all day long with this stuff. I get faffing around and then, do I like that bit? Don't I? And then an hour later, and I'm wrecking this piece of ticket. So back to square one. So I'm kind of thinking I'm going to go with this just to one side here, like so. So I'm just going to hold it in place. My boys have now decided they're going to have a rough and tumble by the side of me and knock 10 bells out of each other. Boys, oi, oi, oi! Shh, shh, shh. Stop it now, stop. They are playing. It doesn't sound like they're playing, but they are playing. And I'll just pull that a bit. And I've got a couple of little tiny images here that I'm just going to ink around the edges of. Yeah, I can go with that. Come on, boys, stop it. Shh, 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 shh. Come on. Wait, boys, stop, stop, stop. These two have been asleep all day. I haven't had a peep out of them all day. And now, just because I'm doing a video, they've decided to come in and misbehave. I don't know. I don't know. What do you like, boys? Hey, what do you like? So that on there, and that down a little bit. Put that on there. Yeah, happy with that. Okay, this Japanese Sanwan paper is so gossamer thin, as I keep saying, that you can quite happily just glue your paper in place, like my ticket, and not even think about the Sanwan paper, because it will go straight through. A bit like the mulberry paper, really. You can almost do it with that, can't you? So I'm just going to reposition that bit like so, and again just ink round my little image. I know somebody's going to ask me where I got these little images from as well, and again, these were from AliExpress. So there we go. I probably will find a word or something else to add on to this little collage, because it's missing something here, I feel. It needs something else. Pop a little pearl on there like I did on the other one. Let's see if I can find a green pearl. Here we go. Just rooting in my desk next door to me. And let me see. There we go. There's the green ones. And my tweezers. So I prefer to put a little dab of glue where my half pearl is going to be, and not rely completely on the adhesive backing that's on these. There we go. These are a little big, these, but I'm okay with that. There we go. So, just a little bit of collaging there and there, and a ticket there and a ticket there. And that's our basic folder done. And now all you need to do is decide what you want to pop in the pockets. And because mine was for labels, that's what I wanted it for, I just filled it up with as many labels as I could find. And you've got lots of nice little pockets for them to tuck into. That one doesn't look any good down there, does it? Just pop that one in the side there. Move those up. And there we go, there we have it. So this was the one we used as our original, and this is the one we've just created. Now, to do the pocket that this slides into, let me clear my decks, and all I did for that was I got a piece of vellum. Now, I'm using very heavyweight vellum. This is 200-gram vellum. And the reason I used this was because I had it in my stash and I thought it would be ideal for this project. So I've got an A4 piece of it here, and if you're working to the same dimensions that I suggested for this, which was 10 by 7, then doing this will make a perfect size pocket. So take your piece of vellum and fold it point to point along the short edge, and then just pinch it where the halfway mark is. Don't crease it all the way down, just pinch it like I've done here, so that you have a mark top and bottom. And then what I did was I took my tearing ruler, put it on those 2 marks, top and bottom, and just gently tear down your piece of vellum, and that is tearing it down the middle with a nice rough edge. Now the reason I say don't crease that all the way down and just pinch it top and bottom, because if you crease it all the way down and then you try and use your tearing ruler, you're not going to get a nice finish. You're certainly not going to get a nice finish like this. What you want to do now is you want to take off a smidgen down this side here. So put your tearing ruler, and what you're tending to do, or what you need to do, is take off about 2.5 centimeters, millimeters rather. And it's easy enough to do if you put your tearing ruler down the shorter side, so you're tearing down here with the short edge there, but you really do need to keep your pressure on your ruler here, and certainly where you're going to be tearing your paper. So what I find is I just move my hand down, keeping the pressure on the point where you're tearing, so that your paper, your vellum, can't slip, and it will leave you with a little strip like that. Now, that holding your ruler down and maintaining the pressure where you're ripping all the way down is more important if you're on a glass mat, because these haven't got much friction and your paper can quite easily slip out, and you end up with kind of like a jagged piece here, and it's not as jagged as you'd want. So okay, so you now have a piece of vellum that has a raggedy edge at the top and a raggedy edge at the bottom, and now what you want to do is you want to just fold it in half with the raggedy edges at the top and the bottom. Now this time you can crease it, but don't do it hard, just kind of do a gentle crease so that it will just stay shut, but it's not creased firmly and pinched. Now what we do is we take our folder. What I'm going to do here is I'm just going to transfer those tickets back into the original one, because we're going to be working in the original one. Now what I do now is I put my folder into the crease like so, and as you can see there is a good 1/2 inch between the edge of the folder here and the straight edge. Okay, let me show you again. So there's our piece of vellum, here's our folder, and you just put it inside the crease that you've just made and close it up. And your 2 straight edges are down this side. Now I prefer to turn mine so that those 2 straight edges are above me or in front of me. What I now do is I get my glue and I put a bead of art glitter glue all the way down that straight edge like so. And then with my straight edges in front of me, I just make sure that I close the folder so that those 2 straight edges are perfectly lined up. Now I know they're in place, and I'm maintaining the pressure because this folder in here will want to push these apart. And what you want to do is you want to make sure that this edge here is matched up until that glue sets. Now with art glitter glue, it goes on white and it dries clear, so as you can see there is a white line in there, which means the glue has met and it's drying nicely. and I don't have to worry about that coming apart. Okay, so now it's just a case of decorating our folder. Now I've done something very simple with this one, which was the original. All I did was I took another label, AliExpress label, and I glued it. I glued it onto my vellum like so. And I like to leave my folder in place as I'm doing that, because then I can see how it's going to look, because as you know, with vellum you can see through it. It's not completely transparent, but it gives you an idea of what your folder is going to look like when all your tickets are, or labels or ephemera are in place. Okay, the next thing I did was I got some handmade paper, and I just roughly eyeballed where I wanted a strip to go. So that's got a nice edge there. I've got a bit of a fold going on there anyway with this piece of paper. And I just eyeballed it basically, and because it's handmade paper it tears nicely. And actually I'm using that fold line, so it's tearing even nicer than normal. I'm not bothered that it's obscuring my image. I'm quite happy with that. But what you do need to make sure is that you have enough to go to the edge, and then if I turn it over, whoops, it's just moving slightly, to go over the other side and crease, and then you can either leave it, got some nail varnish on that now, damn, you can either leave it like that, or what I did was I just tore down a strip. Let me just check that I'm happy with that on the other side. I just tore it roughly down the back like so, and that just sits nicely creased over that edge that you've just glued. Then I got another piece of handmade paper. This time it was some green paper. I don't have any of that left, but I have some green mulberry paper. So I'm just going to, again, eyeball what I need and rip a piece. And sometimes you get a little piece inside your mulberry paper that's needs clipping with a pair of scissors. So I'm just going to kind of put that on there like so, and again just bend it round. I'm just going to move that down a bit because I quite like, there's a flower on this label as you can see. I just quite like it peeping over the top there. And I've just kind of layered those up together and done a crease. And then on the reverse side, I'm just going to tear that edge off down there like so. And pop it back on where I want it to be, like that. Yeah, I'm happy with that. As you can see, I'm copying that exactly on this one. And this time my label has come out. This one, obviously, I've used more white paper, handmade paper, and gone across there. This time I'm going slightly shallower, so I think I will perhaps have my piece like so. Let me think. Yeah, quite happy with that. That there. Okay, so I'm just going to put a line of glue along my straight edge there. Nothing much, just enough just to hold my piece in place as I play a little bit more. Happy with where my green is, so I'm just going to put a smidgen along there. Do I like that there? Yeah, I can go with that. So just doing my usual trick, holding it in place with one hand. A little smidgen of glue there. Just correct it, make sure it's straight whilst it's slightly damp. And then just a little smidgen just to hold that in place. I quite like, I don't like all my edges completely glued. I quite like a little bit of movement. I can always go back in if I decide that I'm not quite happy with it as it is and want a little bit more glue. So just a little bit along that edge and a little bit there. I'm just gonna, whoops a daisy. There we go. So the next thing to do is to, I'll just put the lid on my glue, pin in my glue. There we go. The next thing to do is to punch a couple of eyelets, and again you can do it wherever you like. Now, as you know, we've only put a tiny bit of glue along this edge, so there's plenty of room and plenty of movement here with your folder. Now, if you do your eyelet too close to the edge of your folder, then obviously it's going to tighten up the gap where your folder is. So if, for example, you find that you have a bit too much movement, I mean, that's not going to come out anyway. Oops, a little bit. If you find you've got too much movement, then you can put your eyelets closer to your folder. But actually, with the big, with the crocodile, I think if you just go in just enough so that your eyelet is going to set properly without catching on the edge of your folder, that will be absolutely perfect. Now again, you can put your eyelets wherever you want, but I think it looks quite nice just putting it where your paper is. And I always find with handmade paper, I always get these little pieces. Can you just see it there? I'm not sure. Sticking up. So I always find I need to just clip those with my scissors. So going in with some eyelets. And on the original one I went in with antique bronze, but there's one of my cats going out. This one I've decided I will go with the gunmetal colour. And just going to drop my glasses down so I can see what I'm doing. I've put a washer on the back because I like the look of the washers. And there we go. That's one eyelet in place. Somebody commented the other day, one of my subscribers commented when I made all the ephemera packs using the lovely Chapter 1 Garden Moments digital kit, that I wouldn't have had any eyelets left over because of all the tags I was making. So you'll be pleased to see that I have stocked up again, and these arrived today, which was just in the nick of time. I think I was down to my last half dozen, and I usually buy them in the hundreds from Amazon, So anyway, so there we are. So that's what it looks like now. And then for this, all I've used is some of my vintage French linen thread. And this is more for decoration than anything, because your folder is in there. It's not going to go anywhere in a hurry. So I've doubled up my French linen thread and I'm just threading it through my eyelets. So I've taken it round once, through the other side, like so. And just going to tie a knot first, because this stuff is quite fine and I want my bow to be permanent and not move. So I'm just going to tie a knot, she says. There we go. Just have one loop because it's doubled over. One of my loops is slightly bigger than the other. There we go. And let's chop my ends off. And there we have it. There's my ephemera folder, or label folder, whichever you prefer. So this was the original folder I made. This was the original sleeve, and they just sit nicely like that. Now on this one I just did a little stamp of a fern in the corner, so I'm going to do the same on this one. And I've used distressed ink, Ranger distress ink pads, and this one is peeled paint. And I have a little tiny fern stamp already on a block. So I'm just going to do a test stamp to make sure I've got it up the right way. And there we go. So that's my little folder. As I said, it couldn't be any easier. This is the one we've just made, and obviously I need to pop some labels inside that. Everything's nice and dry now, my collage. The reason I tend to put my labels in, or my ephemera in, and then measure up for my pocket, is so that I know what thickness it will be when I do my wraparound. And this is still quite, it's not going to come out. I'm having to really flick it to get it to come out, but at least I know that it will be a good fit when I've got my labels and or ephemera in it. I just think these are quite versatile little folios or folders. They would make nice gifts. You don't have to make the pocket, as I said. You can use them in your journals, and like I did, just stitch them in and have that as your centre piece in one of your signatures. You could send them out as happy mail, or with Christmas coming up, you could, and this is what I played around with today, you could use them as little ephemera folders for Christmas bits and bobs. So if I show you this one first, I've used some thinner weight vellum for my pocket. This is some vellum that I've embossed, and as you can see it's got snowflakes on, but it is a much lighter weight vellum. Now, as I said, you can make these pockets with lightweight vellum, excuse me, but I actually think they are much better if you can get the 200 GSM vellum. They just feel so much more robust. But that being said, if you haven't got it, then just normal vellum. So as I say, this is some finer vellum, and all I did with it, there's a bit there that I don't like, was I embossed it first and then made my folder. Again, I've used some labels, and again I've used the French linen thread, and this is my folder inside. And what I did was I made a Christmas ephemera folder using all the ephemera from Ranger. I don't know what it's called, but it's their Christmas ephemera. This is stuff that I got last year that I've used in this one. I'm sure they still do it. If not, they'll be bringing some out. I put an eyelet in the top corner here, and on this one, as you can see, I've rounded it off with the corner punch, and I've just put an eyelet in it and threaded through a little dangle there. So lots of little bits of ephemera that I've just tucked in the pocket. Instead of collaging, I've just put a little picture on there. And then there's some journaling cards. These are Stamperia from their Christmas paper collection, so I've used a couple of those which I've backed onto some tea stained paper, and there's Santa popping out the back there. I used a slightly thinner cardstock on this. I didn't use the craft card. As you can see, I used some green, slightly lighter weight, probably about, I think it was 150 GSM for the cardstock for this little folder. And then inside, something slightly different. Here, this is some of the paper from the Stamperia Christmas pad from last year, and I cut it out and I glued it to that strip along the bottom to create a kind of fussy cut edge to my pocket, just for a bit of interest. And my ephemera tucks behind there like so. Okay, and then going over to the back again, just some more bits and bobs. The eyelet in this one hasn't got anything threaded through it, but it just gives you an idea that, you know, you don't have to use these little folders for labels. They are equally as versatile if you use them for ephemera holders, and I think that would make a nice little piece of happy mail to go out round about Christmas time to one of your special friends. And this is another one that I've made. This time, rather than layer it up with the handmade paper, I've put a big label on, as you can see, fussy cut a poinsettia image, a little bit of layering here with a sticker, a tiny little toy soldier, and a label. This straight edge, I just did a hinge or a fold of paper. I just had a strip of paper, and all I did was fold it in half like so. Couldn't be easier. I put it along that edge where the eyelet goes and just glued it front and back. Really easy, and of course it marries in with the designs of the paper inside. And then that's the back. Again, as you can see, more of that embossed vellum. And again, I've done another Christmas ephemera folder, not so full this one, with lots and lots of little bits and bobs inside. This one I've left the corner square. Both of these I've just stitched the bottom corner rather than take the stitching all the way down. I think that's a nicer way to go, but as you can see, to get some coherence and flow, I've used the same paper on that edge. and inside, no fussy cutting. This is the original card that's just folded in, same as we've done on these, but I've just, instead of doing a collage, I've just stuck some labels there and made extra little tuck spots behind them. So you have a big pocket here in the back, but you also have one behind this fussy cut. And then here, this was just an image that I had from an old Christmas card of a sleigh with some parcels, and I've just created another tuck spot there. And then, as you can see, just ephemera tucked in the pockets here. This is all the Ranger ephemera. It's quite lovely and vintagey looking. Did do a little bit of inking around the edge of this one, because obviously with these being vintage looking pieces of ephemera, it blends it in better with the actual folder itself. So lots of little bits there tucked away and tucked in, and obviously Santa again has to be in the picture. And then over the page, again, lots and lots of little goodies. It's amazing how much these little folders will hold, just considering there's only a few little tuck spots. And again, on this piece here, you could create an additional tuck spot so that you end up with the big main pocket, the side tuck, and then another one behind here. So the world's your oyster, really, with how you decorate these little folders. Very, very simple, very easy, but I think that would be nice to receive in the post with a Christmas card or something like that. And of course, flat, so you're not going to get caught by it being classed as a large envelope. That would post or ship as a small envelope, I'm sure. Anyway, thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Just a few ideas for you, and I hope you could follow the tutorial okay. I'm still not the best at these tutorials, I'm afraid, but I will keep trying and I will get better. So thank you so much for watching, everybody. Take care and have an amazing weekend. Bye bye now.